Hey everybody, this is Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and today we're driving the 2022 Lincoln Navigator Black Label. This one is Central Park themed, which will make a little bit more sense once we step inside. And I've been trying to understand the trim levels of Lincoln over the past couple of days, and it's still a little bit fuzzy to me. It doesn't totally make sense because the trim levels to Lincoln also mean that you get different membership perks, and we'll talk about that in a second once we get inside. But I want to walk around the outside of this Navigator first. I've been looking forward to driving this ever since they revised it, since they gave it a facelift. I think that it looks really quite nice, and it actually looks more unique than the Ford Expedition, which is of course the Ford counterpart to the Navigator. They've made it look slightly more unique in its most recent refresh, and I think that that is a great thing. On this Black Label car, we have 22-inch wheels. I think they're quite a nice design, something slightly unique. This is obviously just finished in a nice shade of white. It's slightly pearlescent. And you can open the glass separately from the hatch. Haha, how cool is that? You could use it as a filming car if you wanted to. But of course, you can also open the entire back hatch area. And we're greeted with shag pile carpet, which is quite nice actually. It reminds me of a Range Rover in the way that they give you this really thick quality mat. The only downside to it is it does kind of get in the way if you want to utilize some of your storage compartments under here. There's your toolkits in there, luggage net with a recyclable bag. That's nice to see. Just another little cargo compartment under here. Shut that back down. Another little cubby over there. Of course, this car has third row seating, so we'll go ahead and step back there in just a second. But if you haven't seen already, Central Park theme gives you this really nice dark green or olive colored interior, which is really cool. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a second. But let's go ahead and close the back. Closes decently quick. I don't know that your dogs would have enough time to escape from that. Automatic running boards. I like the idea of these, but having worked around a lot of these cars, they generally don't last more than 4 or 5 years before they malfunction. Salt, dirt, mud gets caked up in there and they just break. So honestly, if I had a choice, I would probably go without them, but that's just me personally. Oh wow, okay. Oh. So that moves quite nicely. It is not power though, but you don't always need things to be power. Oh yes. Bring this chair back. Now this is a third row. I know we sit in cars that have third rows a lot of the time, but they're not big, proper body-on-frame SUVs. And this third row is plenty sufficient for an adult. I mean, look at all the room I've got back here. Sure, I don't have an armrest on this side, but or this side actually, so you don't get armrests, but I've got plenty of leg room. I've got, I mean, my feet, my knees are not in my chest, which is nice. Got a little cubby right here that'll hold a phone. 2 cup holders if you're on the left. Unfortunately, if you're on the right, you only get 1. But we do have a USB port there and here as well. Take a look up here. Man, even in the middle here, I wouldn't be too uncomfortable. So I would say you could comfortably fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 7! You could fit 7 adults in here quite comfortably. So not a bad touch at all. And I mean, even the upholstery back here is quite soft. This really nice green with the white stitching. All right, let's see how hard it is to get out of here. I'm seeing that I have controls here. Oh, that's to fold myself. Oh, you can recline it. Wow, you can recline the third row. Well, that's quite nice. All right, anyways, this is just manual though. You gotta really shove it like you mean it there. It's never a dignified exit from a third row. You always look awkward doing it. All right, let's go ahead and try out this second row seat here. More shag pile carpet, really high quality mats that have metal on them with a Lincoln badge there. Pretty nice. Actually, before we sit back here, let's start this thing up so we can use those rear screens and other features. Okay, so pretty typical rear-facing screens here. While that boots up, let's go ahead and play with some of the other features we have in this second row. We actually have massaging seats back here. So up front, your massages are actual physical balls in the chairs that give you a massage, and it feels like you're sitting in a chair at Brookstone. But back here, it's just compressed air, so a slightly lower quality massage, but hey, the fact that it even has massage back here is pretty cool. We also get heated and cooled functions. Our climate control menu is in here as well, and you can control a couple of other things. Get rid of the display, control your audio and whatnot for your screens. This is just Amazon Prime on the back of the chair. That's hilarious. Should be remotes in here somewhere. Oh, here, what do we have in here? Wow, we've got some Lincoln branded headphones. Very nice. Okay. Wow, and they come in like a suede bag. Is there a remote in here as well? Yes, there is, of course. Okay. So we have a remote. Oh, that's for that screen over there. I'm controlling this screen with this remote. Cars nowadays are just hilarious. All right, well, let's talk less about things. Oh, I'm confused that it's playing a television show now. No, please don't do that thing. Turn it off. Turn it off. Okay. Consider the fact that I could just be bumping the remotes the entire time. All right, let's go ahead and get up front and show you what it's like up there. Again, our automatic running boards. And if you listen closely, notes in the chime played by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Because how more Lincoln could you get than that? Equally nice interior luxuries up here, up front in the Navigator. The first thing I noticed is that your seat controls are on the door, kind of like a Mercedes. And this is my favorite kind of seat control in a luxury car because it just makes everything so easy. And I'm very much a visual person, so I like to see exactly what I'm adjusting. And boy, do we have a lot of adjustments. This sort of shaped thing here, you can adjust separately. So if one of your legs is longer than the other, you're able to accommodate for that. See that? Very nice. You can also do a massage up here, which we won't do because I can't really, well, show you a massage, but it does have little balls, like I said, that actually deliver a very high quality massage. This is one of the nicest massaging chairs that I've ever sat in any car. Center console, that's massive. I've got it full of things right now, but just know that it's huge, very similar to the one you get in the Ford F-150. Now, I touched on earlier that this is the central park trim of the Lincoln Navigator Black Label, and what that means is you get, well, some central park touches to appreciate the park in New York City. You can see little maps here that must be the park. Also, you can have that along the dashboard on the wood. Now, when I got in here, I thought, oh, well, that'll be a map of Detroit because every American car maker is obsessed with Detroit. But actually, it isn't. So that's kind of neat that it's something slightly different. And besides having a map carved into it, this wood trim is quite nice. I always like when wood is a matte trim because even if it isn't real, it seems a little bit more real than the super glossy stick-on crap. I'm not the biggest fan. These doors feel quite nice. They open and close in a very solid way, so I'm a big fan of those. Inside here we have a wireless charger, and we do have wireless Apple CarPlay, but for filming purposes I have my phone plugged in to do CarPlay. Let's take a look at what Apple CarPlay looks like in this infotainment here. This is just a Lincolnized version of Ford's Sync 4 system. It's nothing spectacular. It works just like the Ford system does, except obviously Lincoln have added their touches. And you know, like when you get those floaters in your eyes, like the little twinkly bits in your eyes, I guess not everyone would understand that, but watch when I press something. You get little like dots that float away. See that on when I clicked audio? It's very, everything does this. So just, you see it on the cluster there as well, just a bunch of little dots moving around. Very Lincoln-y touch there. Climate control unit is here in the middle. Now, we do have physical controls, but it can be slightly confusing because your climate control menu, you click menu, and that's in the infotainment. The only way to turn on your heated steering wheel, unless I'm being an idiot, is in the infotainment, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but whatever. It's pretty much my only complaint. And also, if you want to adjust where it's actually blowing, you do that in the infotainment too. However, other climate control functions such as temperature, fan speed, defrost, heated and cooled seats, AC, all of that is controlled physically from down here. Our cluster is fully digital. We've got just a very calm screen, as I showed you earlier, with all of our flowing dots down here. Drive mode selector. Can go through all of our drive modes here. We'll start all the way at the right, slow climb, deep conditions, slippery, they stole that one from Ford, normal 4x4 auto, normal, conserve, because what's more economical than driving a Lincoln Navigator? And then you also have excite, responsive and engaging, because why would you call it sport mode? That gives you an RPM gauge over there on the left if you're in excite mode. We're just going to start out in normal, puts us effortless and balanced. I like that it gives you a little description there for your drive modes. Lincolns are so funny because they always go above and beyond to remind you that you're in something luxurious. You can't just assume it yourself. They have to remind you everywhere you look. Oh, we've got a bunch of floating dots over here on the cluster, and every time you touch something, and a description for your drive modes, and a map of Central Park. It's always a reminder that you're in a Lincoln. So not a bad thing, just an observation. Parking cameras here, you can see our front and 360 cameras. Cycle through these for whatever you want to see. If you're towing, you got your towing camera, rear view. It's cool that we have a really, really crystal clear front camera. All of the cameras in this car are very, very high quality. Like I said, just normal Ford infotainment here, nothing special. Expanding more on the materials up here, the leather itself is very soft. Everywhere you look is covered in peeled cows. I mean, every part of the door panel is covered. Well, actually, now that I say that, this bottom part is not. But this middle section in green, this top section in black, the entire top of the dash and the middle of the dash, that's all covered in leather, so that is nice to see. Actually, we've just got plastic down here, but at least it matches and it's green. Power adjustment for our pedals here. If you want to move your pedals up or towards or away from you, you are able to do that. Also, power adjust for our steering wheel. Charlie's very pleased to see that in a car of such expensive nature. We've also have trailer backup control, which is quite convenient if you are towing. You turn this little knob and it turns the direction of where the trailer should go. I don't have a trailer hooked up, but look up a tutorial on how that looks. It's really, really cool. All right, guys, what do you say we get this Lincoln Navigator out on the road and see what it's like to drive? We've just got a push-button shifter here. There's reverse. You can see our reverse camera swivels with the car, 360 camera there. It always cracks me up when on the 360 camera, there's like a black box around the car because it's just places where the camera doesn't cover, doesn't reach. So we were driving a Land Rover Defender last week, and not only did it not have a black box around it, the entire car was transparent, so you could see under the car as well. So that was probably the highest quality 360 camera I've ever seen. So under the hood of this Lincoln Navigator, and under the hood of every Lincoln Navigator, is a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged EcoBoost V6 that produces 440 horsepower and 510 foot-pounds of torque. So it'll get out of its own way with no problem, especially when there's not a Silverado with ladders on top of it in front of you. It definitely helps. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of time in this review to test out the powertrain. And that has made it, of course, to a 10-speed automatic. There's only one powertrain choice, engine transmission, across the board with the Navigator. But that's okay, because they give you plenty of horsepower and torque from the start. So that I don't really see that being a problem at all. Would I like a V8? Maybe, but this EcoBoost V6 does just fine. He's off to slow some other people down now. All right, let's feel this 3.5 liter. Definitely some piped in engine noise there, but it sounds pretty cool. It's almost like they're trying to make it sound like a V8. But as you can see there, got up to 65 miles an hour very quickly. We've got plenty of power, plenty of torque in this Lincoln Navigator. It's very ample for the size and platform here. I also want to compliment the steering on this Lincoln Navigator, and not necessarily, I mean, it's not really anything special once you're actually on the move and, you know, when I'm driving right now, but when you're maneuvering this thing in parking lots and you have to get it around tight corners, it's very easy to understand this steering, and it's very quick, it's very direct, and you're able to get this big truck around tiny parking lots and it doesn't feel stressy. But even around corners like that, there's nice connection with the steering. It weights up nicely. You're able to power out with no problems. Now, the main question here is, how's the 10-speed in this car? And it isn't perfect, but it's not perfect in a different way that it's not perfect in the F-150, if that makes sense. Sometimes in the F-150 you get missed shifts, you get clunky shifts. And what I found with this Navigator is sometimes it feels like it gets confused. They've obviously got a very smooth transmission tune on this Navigator. They want it to drive smoother than an Expedition, smoother than an F-150, so they've programmed it to do so. A downside of that is when you're cruising on the highway in 10th gear and you put your foot down, well, it takes it a minute to downshift from 10th gear to 4th gear to 3rd gear, whatever it needs to do. And that can be a little bit frustrating if you're trying to get around traffic and your car doesn't know what gear it wants to be in. On the upside, it's never really clunky or like shuddery or anything. Like you sometimes get in an F-150, you get really, really hard shifts, but in the 2 days I've been driving this, I have not had any clunky or missed shifts. So that's been good. Just a little bit of confusion on the highway when you're going to pass. But honestly, Ford is almost there with this 10-speed tuning. I think the best rendition of this 10-speed is in the Bronco. That's where I've been the most impressed with their tuning. And funny enough, actually, no, scratch that. The best rendition and tuning of this 10-speed is in the GMC Sierra. That's the best one. It's the best one that I've driven so far. Over the rough ride section here, the ride's pretty good. Got to remember that this is a body-on-frame SUV, so every bump will really just feel medium. But this feels better than most body-on-frame SUVs because it's a Lincoln, and they have tuned it to ride quite a bit softer than the Expedition or the F-150. It feels a little bit floaty at high speeds, but not a bad type of floaty. It's a really, really comfortable ride on the highway. I've had no complaints. Ran the fuel economy test on this Navigator earlier. That'll be linked in the description if you are curious. But very, very nice ride on the highway. Very relaxing experience, especially when you're staring at all of these floating dots. What is that supposed to be? Can someone tell me in the comments? I do apologize for not knowing. There's probably a reason for this. Is it supposed to be like constellations? Is it supposed to be like gold dust floating up? I just don't know. Sometimes I feel like Lincoln tries a little bit too hard to be luxurious. But in some ways I also understand it because they kind of have to. Because this is, of course, just a Ford Expedition with different bumpers and a different interior. So they have to go slightly above and beyond to mask that because, well, I've been waiting long enough. I'll tell you right now. This is a $108,000 SUV, okay? When you're spending $108,000, you don't want to be reminded that you're in a Ford. I don't care who you are, who you work for, whatever. You don't want to be in a Ford SUV for $108,000. You want your Lincoln to be slightly unique. And they've done a good job with that for this generation, certainly more than the last generation. But it's almost like you can tell the areas where they try to distract you, like this map on the dash and the little floaty things on the cluster and the description of the drive modes and things like that, and the symphony chime when you get in. So none of these are bad things. I just think that it's kind of funny the way that Lincoln goes. They just kind of they push it in your face. It's a Lincoln, we promise. It's not a Ford Expedition. It's a Lincoln Navigator. We do have some driver assists in this Lincoln Navigator. I'm blanking on the clever name they've come up with the system. Oh, heave it around the corner. You do feel the weight, of course. And then power out. 510 foot-pounds of torque doing work there. All right, so let's go ahead and set, well, for one, our lane keeping system on. Fantastic. Now we're going to set our cruise control here. So this should, so you pick up on some lines here. You may actually have to be going 70 to do this. So this does have a steering assist system, and I was actually using it earlier on the highway, and it has this little radar here, which, here, let me shut this off so I can show you. So this little device here, which on camera is probably blinking pink, and I apologize for that if it is doing so. But what that does is it watches your eyes, and it makes sure that you're watching the road. I've never been in a car that's so strict about you watching the road. And earlier I was filming the fuel economy test on this, and obviously, you know, I've got a GoPro mounted on my forehead, and I think that was interfering because I was watching the road. I mean, what else am I doing while I'm filming one of these videos? Both hands on the wheel, I'm watching the road. The system got so upset, it was freaking out. Beep, 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 keep eyes on road, keep eyes on road, keep eyes on road. My eyes were on the road. And then it started to hit the brakes without me asking it to. It was like blipping the brakes. Every couple of seconds, it would brake check me. And that was quite alarming. So what I did was I turned off the lane keep assist, and then it stopped doing that. So I have not used that again since, until I just did there. But for some reason, the auto driving function didn't come up. So I don't know, maybe I broke it earlier or something, but yeah, so top tip, Daily Motor top tip, if you are going to be driving a Lincoln Navigator and you have a GoPro on your forehead, don't use the lane keep assist because it'll look into the GoPro instead of your eyes and it'll confuse the system. So now you know, you don't have to be scared to death like I was earlier. So let's circle back around now to price. So you can have a Lincoln Navigator from just under 80 grand. So you can have the standard trim for 77. You can go up to the middle trim, which is called the Reserve, or you can go for the Big Daddy, the Black Label, which is what we're driving right now. And the way I understand it is that you're really paying for perks with Lincoln. It's almost like they're an airline or something. It's very strange. So you buy the Black Label, and along with that comes 4 years, 50,000 miles of paid service, so oil changes and other maintenance items for your first 50,000 miles of ownership. Additionally, you get preferred like upgrades for Avis rental cars, so I assume the purpose of that is so you're able to drive a Lincoln when you're traveling. And you've got the concierge service. They'll come pick up your car for service, or when you purchase the car, they'll just drop it right off at your door. So the way I see it is you're paying extra to be like a member of Lincoln. It's like Sky Miles. Like you become Silver Medallion or Diamond or whatever, and then you've got more perks. It's almost like they should give you a butler in the back to hand you glasses of sparkling grape juice while you're driving or something. Or it's almost like they should unlock the third row once you've driven a certain amount of miles on the car. Like, congratulations, you've unlocked the third row of your Lincoln Navigator, your Silver Medallion status. Anyways, you do just get that vibe in here. But, yeah, guys, overall, those are my impressions. I also just want to go out and say that I apologize for this review not being quite as in-depth. I don't know this car as well as I would on a normal week. We've got a super packed schedule this week, and instead of driving the car for, well, 4 or 5 days before I review it for you guys, I've only been driving this car for about a day and a half. So I've been doing my best to observe everything about this. And it also doesn't help that this is the first Navigator of this era, of this generation, that I've driven. So I hope you've enjoyed sort of my first impressions. This is more of a first impressions drive of the Navigator. Very honest first impressions. Do I think it's worth $108,000? I really don't think so. One thing that doesn't help the case of this Lincoln Navigator is the fact that we're also driving a Lexus GX 460 this week. I understand that's a slightly smaller and older car, but it's 62 grand, and it has a lot of things that this Navigator does. So it begs the question, why am I paying $108,000 for this Navigator? Especially when a lot of it is just for like service perks and to get better rental cars or whatever. So I don't know, it's really more like a status symbol than anything, you know. I'm sorry to say it, but this car really makes sense for someone that has 5 children. But I mean, are families with 5 children going out of their way to buy a Lincoln Navigator? Probably not. If you're someone that has 5 children, you're probably just going to get a Ford Expedition or like a Chevy Suburban or something, which is what I would do. Also, Jeep's new boy, the Grand Wagoneer. We just drove that earlier on this year, and I mean, honestly, it's just as nice. But the cool thing about that Grand Wagoneer is you get the 6.4 liter V8 out of a Scat Pack. So that's a pretty cool touch, and it gives you that good FCA-ness that just makes the car feel pretty special. But anyways, that's been my first impressions drive here of this Lincoln Navigator Black Label. If you're curious to see a little bit more, I will have my fuel economy test linked down below. And any other videos that we have of this generation Lincoln Navigator. I think Charlie may have driven one last year. If not, then I'll edit this part out and you won't even know. But if he did, I will link that down in the description as well. Of course, have comfort access with your steering wheel and your seat. Ah, yes. Reminded that you chose the Black Label there on the door sill as you step onto your functioning at the moment power running board. What do you guys think? Would you go for a Lincoln Navigator, a Cadillac Escalade, or a Jeep Grand Wagoneer? It's kind of tough for me to say because I love the way the Navigator looks. I think it's the best looking of the 3. I like the way it drives better than the Escalade, but I think the Grand Wagoneer overall feels the most special, and it's the newest. It's a totally new platform. So I'd be between this and the Grand Wagoneer. I don't have an answer for which one I would choose because I haven't spent enough time with this Navigator. But I hope you all have enjoyed watching this first impressions review of the Navigator. And, well, we'll see you very soon in the next video. This has been Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.